Hi everyone, welcome to Martech Brain, a Netco initiative where we speak to the best brains in Martech and digital and delve deep into one topic. My guest today is Ashish Thomas, CEO of Summit Media. He's based in Singapore. Summit Media is one of the largest digital platforms in Philippines, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Ashish's chosen topic for our conversation today is monetizing content and audiences. So Ashish has been an alumnus of InMobi, Google, Microsoft, and Singtel. So no better person than him to discuss various aspects of monetization. And Summit Media has 30 plus million unique monthly users on its websites and 40 million, amazing numbers, 40 million plus on its social media platforms. Welcome to Martech Brain, Ashish.
Thanks so much, Rajesh. It's a pleasure, and I'm honored and humbled to be with you on this call.
And you're a sort of veteran in data, AI, digital advertising, monetization. So I think the first question really is, you took over a couple of years ago at Summit Media. You've turned the business around, and it's growing very well despite the pandemic. I think it's a fantastic platform that you've really built in the last, or grown in the last couple of years. And you used a very unique model of partnerships for building that out. So it'd be great to talk about, in a world where digital media is sort of a big challenge, everyone complains about Google and Facebook taking away all the money. How have you managed it?
So it's something, Rajesh, I learned very early in my working life that, media is increasingly being driven by technology. If anything, it's the technology that causes the differentiator. And traditionally, media companies are not great tech companies, and so, how do you stay ahead in an ecosystem where technology is moving faster than you can? And, you want to always be at the bleeding edge of innovation. And the only way to do that is to have very strong and very aggressive partnerships. And these are not partnerships, the way we used to see it yesterday or today. Even today, you meet so many people who have the vendor principal model. And, this is partnerships that, sometimes we have been discussing on, how do you truly partner? So, when I joined the organization, we had about 7-10 partners. Today we have 50 plus partners, and it's a philosophy that I try and practice and preach to our entire organization, which is, we are as good as our partners. So it's super important to treat them well. It is super important to leverage them and be fair with them so that we are able to stay ahead or at least close to competition.
Mm-hmm. And one of the unique things, I think what you've done is you're very clear that what you have is media. You are in media tech, and the tech comes from partners. So tell us a little more on how you go about, because this is very unique. I've seen a lot of media companies who try and build the tech in-house, and that takes them forever. They invest a lot. They are never able to match up with the best. And that's in a way been the big secret for your success at Summit. So give us a few examples of how you've made this happen.
Yeah, so, we, like any other media company, we want to also have as much in-house built. But, what we realized was, and what I've seen from my career as well, is that, by the time you build something, and you bring it to life, 6 months go by, 12 months go by, and, the goalpost moved already. And so the game changes. And then you are sitting on old tech. Even though you put in all the effort and the investment, you end up sitting on old tech at the end of the year. And the space is moving so fast that you have to constantly stay ahead. So, which is why, it's super important to, I think, fundamentally important to have a core set of partners. And it's not about, partnering with one and not partnering with the other. So to your question on, how we managed it, or some examples, for example, we work with 4 DMPs, not one, and all 4 of them are very close partners with us, and each one brings a certain unique, capability and a technology, or a innovation to it. And, you know, how do you justify an investment into 4 DMP partners who, when the world chooses just one?
Yes.
And I think, the way to do that is to, uh, is to really uh, deliver better revenue, and have that justification deal with itself. And, it's it's there's no rocket science to it. How do you stay ahead of the pack of peer competition, and deliver better value for your shareholders, for your board, for your employees, and use that money to make it work harder and better for you with your partners. So, that is just one of the examples of, how we try and pull things off. Another great example is video. So, we work with 6 different partners in the video space now. And we are not great at digital video. Traditional linear video companies are not, out there competing with Netflix and TikToks of the world. So, it's important that, you are employing multiple partners, so that you are catching up on time and technology gaps. B, it helps you stay ahead. You're not second guessing competition, but you know where the puck is going to be. You know where the competition is going to be. So I would say those are just 2 great examples that we have followed in the last couple of years.
So one question, Ashish, with all of these partnerships, stitching them together is something of an art, essentially, right? I mean, if you've got multiple DMPs, multiple video partners, etc., how do you manage to do that? Getting all of them to sort of work together, getting the best out of each one. That team is perhaps an internal team, which does all this. So, what's the sort of core competence that Summit sort of brings in out here?
I think that's a very good question, Rajesh. And, sometimes I still grapple with that question, because, uh, you know, it's something that you will never be able to answer 100%. And so even today, right, we might have 50, 60, 80 partners, but there are some times where 10 don't work for us, or 15 don't work for us. And, sometimes I feel, is it a DNA mismatch, or is it a execution failure? And I think the answer to that question is, how do you make it work, is 2 very crucial and opposite things. Having a very clear vision and strategy, and making sure your team is completely calibrated with that. And I think the second one is uh, execution brilliance. No strategy becomes great without having granular and execution, and no execution is granular and great without a proper strategy. And these are 2 opposite sides of the same coin. And, how often in life have we seen where, you have great strategy, or you have poor execution and it doesn't get executed, or you have great execution prowess, but you've had a bit of a faulty strategy or vision.
So combining strategy, and I'm assuming, sharing some of that with your partners, so they are aligned in the direction, and then having the internal teams to make sure that all these partnerships are basically, they're all moving in the same direction that you really have charted out. And that's the way forward, that you take everyone along with your internal teams.
Yeah.
So another interesting aspect, when we had spoken earlier, which you brought up, is this desire to be the first at. And that's really also driven a lot of innovation at Summit Media. So tell me a little about that. See, a lot of people don't want to be the first at something. They don't want to be the guinea pig. Okay, where the first question we get when we go to companies is, where have you implemented it? And here you are saying that I want to be the first at, get me newer things which I can do. So talk a little about that.
Yeah, it's see, there is always a risk in being the first to the market. Sometimes, and history has enough evidence of, if you remember, the first social network was
Yes.
not Facebook, but it was Friendster and MySpace and, some of the others. The first augmented reality experience was Second Life 10 years ago. Uh, so, there is always a danger of being first to market. But, if you know why you're doing it, then, these dangers become non-essential or non-incidental. Uh, so, one of the philosophies that I've tried to practice is that we want to be the first in the market, and our partners know that. It's to what you mentioned, trusting your partners and sharing with them a certain goal. And when you do 51st in the market, so when you do 21st in the markets, they two things happen. One, actually three things happen. One, your team becomes razor sharp. Yeah. Number two, the market starts respecting you for innovation. Number three, there are some that really take off because even if 10%, it's like the VC model where you invest in 100 companies, but only 10 or 5 really give you the big bang for your buck. And, how do you just use that same model to practice it with, being the first in the market with 15 new product launches or 20 new product launches or, you know, 50 new facets of a new business that you're incubating, which gets spread over 18 months. So I think when you're doing that, what people fail to realize is that you know I'm going to be a guinea pig. It may fail, it may succeed. But if you looked at the flip side of it, if you keep doing it in an institutionalized manner, yeah, again and again and again, you will reach a point in time where you don't need to do it anymore because it comes naturally from the teams.
Mm.
People, teams, execution folks, they get trained. So over the first 2 years, and this is a great nugget, and I'm so glad you're asking me this question, Rajesh, because in the last 2 years, first year was a lot of this heavy lifting of trying to be the first in the market. Today, I have 10 people in the organization telling me 10 new things they want to launch, which nobody else has launched, and they believe they can do it in record time. So now you have institutionalized innovation in the organization. You institutionalize that model because they're capable, they're confident, they won't they won't have fear of failure. Yeah, and the technology gaps that existed are narrowing, right? So it's just that philosophy which you put to practice, which really gets things moving for you.
So give an example, where an innovation which has worked well and which really has helped Summit Media accentuate its market leadership position. So listeners, viewers get the idea of.
Yeah, so actually a great question. So in the pandemic, everything locked down, and revenue started going down for all publishers like us and for all digital media companies initially. So we ideated and we came up with an augmented reality solution for our lifestyle and our beauty brands. And so we became the first. We were, I think, arguably the first media organization that launched an augmented reality capability online. And at first it didn't do too well. It took us a bit of time to get it right, and it was hard. We were working with 3 partners to get it done. And then when it went live, when people saw it, it went through the roof. I had so many users coming to it. I had like some 8 advertisers saying, "I will pay you top dollar for it." The same thing happened with something called a live cast launch. So, we were again one of the first media organizations to do a live cast across 7 different screens, and we pulled it off on an outdoor screen, on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, other platforms, and 7 of our own brands. which are our own web brands, and then we did it on our own app as well. And we did it exactly at the same time, using those 6 different video partners, because it was a launch which had to be done at a specific time. We were the only ones who pulled it off for one of the leading car manufacturers in the world. And a day after we pulled it off, they came and asked us to do it for them in other markets where we are not present in. After which, I had everyone else in that industry lining up to do the same execution for the next 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was literally like, we had our hands full. So while people were still figuring out, how do we make revenue, we were figuring out, how do we get it executed and burn the money and, deliver a great experience to our users and our clients. Again, Rajesh, it would not have been possible if we didn't try new things and want to be the first in the market. It wouldn't have been possible without our partners.
So in a way, what you've done is really this amazing flywheel that you've put together. So you're basically saying that, look, my strength is media. That's what I do very well. For the tech, because everything is now tech. So for the tech, I get in partners. I tell them, bring me your best innovations, bring me your new ideas. Okay, you have an organization culture which essentially recognizes innovation, is geared towards taking those innovations to brands. And then when it's rolled out, customers love it because they are seeing something for the first time, like the AR example that you brought out. It's probably not even done in many markets today. And then that drives more brands to come in, which presumably brings you more partners. It's a great flywheel that you.
Yeah.
So, Ashish, if I move to a little different topic, what is today? See, one of the biggest challenges in media really is about monetization. So everyone talks about the fact that Google, Facebook take away a lot of the revenue, and therefore media companies are challenged. And yet, you've done amazing things at Summit. What is your approach to thinking about sort of audiences? And you have massive audiences across your platforms. And how do you monetize those? How do you deliver brands? How do you connect brands and these audiences? So what's your sort of mental model and view around this?
Yeah, so actually there are 2 parts to that question. And two parts to the answer to that question. See, there are times we compete with Google, there are times we partner with them. And, one has to be very clear when you're going to partner and when you're going to compete. And it's the same thing with Facebook as well. And, we treat them as partners, and we are very transparent with them. So I remember, I had shared this with you that, in some of my partner discussions with Google in the region or with Facebook in the region, I tell them very clearly, look, here is where I'm going to compete.
Right.
Yeah. Now you have to decide if you want to partner with us or not. And here is where I urgently need your partnership and your help. Yeah. So I think the answer to that is, being very transparent. Yeah. And I think, that's when the big daddies will also start respecting you, because then they know that you're clear about your strategy on where you're going to partner and where you're going to compete. So that is one. I think the other is, to your point on, monetization is a challenge. It will continue to be a challenge. And which is why we were one of the first, few digital media companies to come up with our own DMP. We want to take charge of our own data. In a world where it's getting increasingly difficult to compete with a lot of innovation in technology, in a world which is moving to AI, AI models and robotized models, data is the oil, but data is the crude oil. How do you refine it and make use of it to fire our engines? And so, the only way forward is to take charge of your data and, partner with that data with some partners and compete with that data with some partners. And so, which is why, I believe, at least in some of our markets, in some of our segments, we are possibly 1 or 2 years ahead of competition, and which gives us the premiums, which brings us the revenue. And in a pandemic where a lot of people struggle to make a profit or even break even, we exceeded our targets. And the reason for that is because of some of these imperatives. Take charge of data. The sooner you do it, the better it is for the health of your business.
I think that's a great point, because eventually what you're really doing is across the platforms, there are individuals coming, they are leaving these data trails. You're connecting the data trails and then delivering the right connects to the brands. And because you have the data, you have now got control of the data. That also lets you get the best value from there. And I think this is probably a mistake which many media brands have done in the past, where they didn't have control on their own data.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and the only way to do it is, again, through partners.
Right.
A lot of media brands have wanted to do it on their own, and but I do know of quite a few examples of where other media brands have also followed a partnership model. I think the key is, it's not the lack of willingness to partner, it's the inability to execute at God's speed. Because we are living in a world of technology innovation, high speed innovation, bleeding edge innovation. And so and traditional media organizations are used to traditional speed. And so either you have to strike that balance of getting innovation speed to move at a much faster pace in the organization, so that you're not just catching up, but you're a bit ahead. And which is why the DNA and the ingredients that you use to build the team needs to be a very different ingredient. It's a new ingredient which tends to be a bit alien for traditionally run businesses.
So, based on your learnings, if there were 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give to other sort of media companies in the Asian region, especially because of sort of general similarities in culture, etc., what would they be? Because I know in India, a lot of brands have a huge challenge in monetization. They've probably not done as much as you have at all. And many of them are still stuck in the print world. And that's a world which is sort of, the younger audiences we all know have moved away entirely to digital. And that's a world which is not going to last very long. And you've managed this transition beautifully across a large portfolio of lifestyle brands at Summit Media. So a couple of pieces of advice to sort of your peers across the region.
Coming from the digital and the media industry, my first job was in media always. So, that's kind of been my first love. And then it meandered in the zone of technology and AI and all of that. I think traditional media businesses, because of the nature of the business, if you go back in time, media has always been the voice of the consumer. The media has always been a strong brand in the market. There's always a brand pull. If you look at the large brands out there, and along with it comes ego, along with it comes pride. And, we just have to shed our egos and say our partner is king. Those days of, my newspaper is the largest newspaper in the country, or my magazine's name is so and so, and it's a global magazine, or I am the owner of the 8 largest media brands, and I do interviews with the Amitabh Bachchans and the Narendra Modis of the world. That's gone. There is it's there. And I think there are trusted brands in this space, and those brands will always be trusted. But the key to this transformation that we are all on the path of is to shed that ego and partner aggressively, because there is so much time to be made up that if you don't do it, then it's over, it's history. And you can already see that with some of the prominent brands that are there in the US. They've just got swallowed, they're just done, they've gone bankrupt. And that same wave is almost here. It's already started happening in corners of Asia. So I think that's one. And my second belief is, hire a great CEO. Let go of control. And that's something that I've seen from my shareholders. They put in a lot of, I was very iffy about, whether I should take this role up or not. It's a media organization. And, my shareholders said, my owner said, we want you to run it and we will not interfere. We believe in your vision. And, having that cadence, that DNA is super important for success. I won't have been able to do half the things I've done if I didn't have that kind of an understanding. Yeah. And I think, media owners, business owners need to learn to let go, especially in India.
Fantastic advice. I think both the points very well taken. I think, and you've sort of built a great franchise there. And as we move towards the end, here are a quick rapid fire questions for you. One future tech trend that excites you?
AI.
AI. Of course.
Actually, it's not future, it's here. We are using it. It's being used everywhere. And I think it's just going to become super, super penetrated in things that we won't even know how it impacts our lives.
And the oxygen for AI, of course, is data. And you need control on the data to really make AI work for you.
Yeah.
One tech trend that has disappointed you?
Ad tech.
And you come from a world of ad tech.
Yeah, and there are I learned a lot in my previous organization and where I work, but there are so many ad tech players out there who have, it's a bubble that was created, which I think, is bursting in some parts of the planet. And you can see that bursting happening, and so much of promise, right, and so little delivered.
Absolutely. One good book recommendation?
I keep reading, so there is no one book. The one I'm reading right now is a bit dated, but I've picked it up again. It's Thinking Fast and Slow.
Of course. And there's a new book coming out by Daniel Kahneman.
Yes.
An eagerly awaited Noise.
Yes.
Next month. So that's a great recommendation. One good person, podcast to follow, author whom people should read a lot more about?
So I don't follow religiously, but I do follow Satya Nadella a bit. I've had the opportunity to, not having worked with him directly, but, having worked at Microsoft, I like to read a lot about what he's thinking and, how he thinks about the evolution of technology. And so that's more in the tech side. Of course, on the strategy side, and for the chicken soup for the soul side, I look out for Mr. Jim Collins. He's someone who stays relevant even in today's world. You have a lot of authors who come and go, and they have one book wonders, two book wonders, but he's someone who's consistently over time been relevant to how the needs of corporates and businesses have evolved over time.
Absolutely. And his new book is summarizes sort of his life's work Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. It's a fantastic read.
Yeah.
And final question, a key driving belief in your life?
Innovation. Innovate or die.
And you've always been at the cutting edge of innovation in the companies that you have worked for, and now you're leading innovation at Summit.
I won't claim that. I will try to be, and that's the only thing that keeps my brain ticking. That's what only thing that keeps my organization throbbing for, a desire to innovate and to out innovate.
Great inputs, Ashish. It was a fantastic conversation. I think a couple of points that you stated, which will of course stick with me. I think this whole partnership model to success. And I think the second key point is innovation, and you sort of have lived it through being first. Okay, the ability to essentially get things to market quickly and at speed. And of course, the other element which you brought up is, and very few companies and CEOs actually get this right, is being able to marry strategy plus execution and of course, speed, which is what you've done. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you everyone for watching. That was Martech Brain. That was Ashish Thomas of Summit Media. And we'll be back with another edition very soon. Thank you.